This week is Parsha Shoftim, spoken about topics in Mishpat and Din the last 2 years. I want to focus this year on the topic of Chinuch. I'd like to start by welcoming all our new listeners on the Young Israel of Queens Valley app and website. Look forward to having you join us. And thank you to the shul for allowing me this chus to be a part of the Harbatzas Torah that goes on there. And of course, to everybody else who's listening, whether it's on the mailing lists or on the podcast. So a great honor for me to have you listen to what we have to say here. And I'm always love to hear from everybody. I can always be reached at meaningfulideas@gmail.com. Anyways, I have a favorite vort that I like to say over. It's first started in the book Chinuch in Turbulent Times by Rabbi Dov Brizak. Fantastic book. Incredible mechanic, respected by the Gedolim. The vort is a vort from the Sefer Chovas Hatalmidim by the Piaseczna Rebbe. It's built around a Rashi in this week's Parsha. So the Parsha talks about, in Perek Ches Pasuk K, it talks about when Klal Yisrael is going to war, and the Pasuk tells us how the Shotrim send back certain people from the army, and they tell them you shouldn't go out to war. The first example is Mi Ha'esh Asher Bana Bayis Chadash V'lo Chanocho Yelech V'yashel B'Veisel, that a person who has built a new house, but he hasn't been mechanech in it yet. Rashi explains what it means is he hasn't lived in it yet. He says the language of chinuch is a language of beginning. So the Chovas Hatalmidim wonders about this language of chinuch, meaning beginning. Is it really every time we mean beginning? Gemara says we masche beginus u'masayim b'shvach by Pesach. We say mechanech beginus, meaning it's not like every time we use the term beginning, we use the word chinuch. So he brings a Rashi in Parshas Lech Lecha. We find when Avram Avinu was going out to fight the 4 kings, it says Vayorech es chanichav. He girded his charges, is probably the easiest way to translate that. And Rashi explains, what's this language of chanichav? Rashi explains it's those he was mechanich in mitzvos. That's the language of haschavas k'snisas ha'adam okli u'manashu asad lamad ba. It's a language of beginning, of bringing of a person or a vessel to its purpose which it was going to stand in. And same thing, Chanoch lנער, al pidarko, chanukas hamizbech, chanukas habayis. So what Rashi is telling us is that the language of chinuch is going on the person, not on the house. And what it means, you have a chanukas hamizbech when they started using the mizbeach for its function. The chanukas habayis when he starts using the house for its function. And so too the language of chinuch habanim. So chinuch obviously is not education, right? You don't educate a house. What is chinuch? Says the Chovas Hatalmidim. It's this same language of beginning the child in this position where he'll be able to utilize his potential, be able to serve out how he's supposed to function. It's this concept of what chinuch is. Very powerful idea. If we think about it, that chinuch is a very long-term perspective. Meaning, as Rabbi Brizak likes to say, discipline is essential. Chosech shifto sone beno. Rashi explains a person who doesn't discipline his child is going to end up hating him when he goes in the totally wrong path. A child needs discipline, but at the same time, says Rabbi Brizak, chinuch, discipline is not the foundation of chinuch. Chinuch is not about control. Chinuch is about building the child on the path that we want him to go on, so that long-term he'll be able to stand on his own feet and function the way he's supposed to function. Just a few perspectives. What is chinuch? What are we trying to accomplish for our children and for ourselves? So one approach I'll share with you, a Goyish approach. Dave Ramsey likes to say, success with my children, none of them live in my basement. That's a perspective on, maybe that's the fun, maybe that's what we're trying to accomplish. They should be responsible adults, be able to hold down a job, be able to function in society, move out, take care of themselves. Is that the goal of chinuch? There's an interesting book, a very nice book called Spare the Child by Rabbi Yechiel Yaakovson, a chashuv mechanech in Eretz Yisrael. The way he defines chinuch, he says this is the perspective he receives from the Gedolim, is things we do to cause our children to experience pleasure and joy in ruchnius, so that they'll desire it and learn how to achieve it. In other words, that they'll associate positivity and they'll find joy in a life of Torah and mitzvahs. And anything that's not taking us there It might be controlling my kid, but it's not chinuch. He has chapters called chinuch versus control. Just to give you one of his examples is that he has a child and the child doesn't want to make a bracha on the candy. So he says to withhold the candy from the child until he makes the bracha. You might get him to make the bracha, but it's not chinuch. You're not training the child long term to want to make brachos, to appreciate, enjoy making brachos. As the Chovas Hatalmidim says, hergel and hergel is not the same thing as chinuch. Screaming at the child is not chinuch. So what approach did he give in this book as the example? He told the child, Hashem loves you so much. Hashem so much wants you to enjoy this candy. Hashem says you shouldn't eat the candy until you make a bracha. Kid said, all right, I'll make the bracha. Then afterwards he told him, you should just know, my little yingle, there were thousands of malachim singing in Shemayim, and then they all stopped. Why? So they could hear your bracha. He built up this sense. This is for a 4-year-old. This is a sense of building up a positive experience in Ruchni, something, because that's really the goal, right? We don't just want mechanical avodas Hashem. That's not why we're here. We want meaning and happiness in a life of serving Hashem. And according to him, that's what we're trying to accomplish in Chinuch. Just to give another perspective in what we're trying to accomplish. Can't do this topic without talking about a book that made a tremendous impression on my life. John Gottman has a book called The Heart of Parenting, How to Raise an Emotionally Intelligent Child, where he talks about the concept of raising children who can be emotionally intelligent, be in touch with their emotions, be able to recognize and validate and connect with the emotional worlds of others. Very important skill in Bein Adam La'Chavero and Bein Adam La'atzmo. And he talks about the idea of what he calls emotional coaching of our children, is to recognize when they're experiencing emotions, that they are experiencing emotions, and to validate the child's emotion and to help them appreciate how to work through their emotion. And it's a tremendously powerful technique. I don't know about girls, definitely with boys, from ages 3 to 10, I've just seen amazingly how simple and how powerful it is that when the child gets upset about, because their sibling pushed them or called them a name or looked at them or who knows, or whatever it is, that if we treat them like a normal human being instead of let their emotions actually matter, the way we treat an adult, I'm sorry that so-and-so bothered you. That must be upsetting, and just validate it. It's amazing how quickly, 80% of the time, that's all they were looking for, is that validation. Like, okay, you're upset because this and this happened to you, and you have a right to be upset, and I validate that you're upset. And that, instead of being, you're disrupting the peace, go to your room until you're ready to stop disrupting the peace. I don't care why you're upset. Your emotions don't matter to me. To actually show the person that we care about their emotions and that they deserve, that they're real, then they weren't to respect their own emotions, they weren't to recognize the emotional world of others, which in my mind is a very important thing. Share with you one more quick idea in Chinuch. Remember when I took a certain job and they gave me a strong foundation in how to be a ben olam haba in the workplace. It was a place where they make hundreds of millions of dollars, but they make it very clear, the people who run the place, that olam haba is more important to them than olam hazeh. And it gave me a certain foundation, which I viewed as a chinuch, to then walk into another place and have that mindset of olam haba is more important than olam hazeh. It gave me a foundation, even as an adult. Yid is a Talmid Chacham. Why a Talmid Chacham? Why not a Chacham? Because a Yid's always learning, a Yid's always growing. We're always in a position where we're trying to learn new things, in this position where we need more chinuch. Hopefully, we'll be able to build these foundations and be able to build upon these foundations and be able to utilize our potential and grow in the proper way. Thank you as always for listening. May this Devar Torah be a schus for Imi Morasi, Charna Bas Basha. She should have a Refuah Shalem Bekarov. She's going through procedure tomorrow. May Hashem all will be well. And may Hashem bring Refuah to her. B'Soch Shar Chol Yisrael. Wishing you all a wonderful Shabbos.